Hello, everyone. My name is Evan Foster, and I'm the TerraCore member for the Attleboro Land Trust. Welcome back to another episode of the ALT's live series on Facebook, all about land conservation and protection in the city of Attleboro. Today's guest is Danica Warns. So Danica is the Climate Resilience Coordinator for Mass Audubon Southeast Region, supporting communities with proactive land use planning that leverages the value of nature to achieve climate resilience. She has a background in marine and coastal ecology obtained from Stony Brook University's School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences, and several years of experience engaging partners and community members under coordinated efforts to achieve habitat restoration goals on a watershed level. So if you have any questions during the presentation, you can type those into the comment section and I will read them out at the end of the presentation. So with that, I will bring up the presentation and you can begin.
Thanks, Evan, and hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. All right. So as Evan said, my name is Danica. I'm a Climate Resilience Coordinator at Mass Audubon, and I work in our Southeast region. So my home office is actually at Knoll Sanctuary in Attleboro, and you can go to the next slide, please. So for those who may not be aware of Mass Audubon, we are a conservation nonprofit that operates throughout the state of Massachusetts, and our mission is to protect the nature of Massachusetts for both people and wildlife. So if you go to the next slide, these are some of our priorities for the work that we do. So we have kind of these three guiding goals that guide everything that we do. So we're working to, one, protect resilient landscapes for both people and nature. And we do that through our network of sanctuaries and protected areas that we manage throughout the state, and we steward those lands. We're also working to improve inclusive and equitable access to nature across the street for all people. And lastly, climate change. So mobilizing and advocating people to take action and step up for climate change. And if you want to find out more about our work that we do and this new action agenda, you can find it at massaudubon.org/action agenda. You can go to the next slide, Evan, please. So I wanted to talk a little bit about we have two properties in Attleboro. We have Attleboro Springs and Knoll, which are both located on Park Street in Attleboro. So here is Attleboro Springs, and you can find out more about the sanctuary and find a trail map if you go to massaudubon.org/Attleboro Springs. There's a whole map there, and we have a recently opened all access trail. So it's accessible trail for all people that is passable for wheelchairs and mobility challenged people. So we invite you to go there and check it out. And then the next slide is our Knoll Wildlife Sanctuary, which is located about a mile down the road from Attleboro Springs. And we have a nature center here, which unfortunately is not open to the public yet due to COVID. We've still been closed, but the sanctuary is open to visitors. And again, you can find a trail map and more details if you go to our website at massaudubon.org/Knoll. So you can go to the next slide. And I want to talk a little bit about, one more slide about Knoll before I move on to educational programs, is we are very proud that we just recently opened a new trail called the Knoll Stroll, which connects the Gatra bus, Route 15, from Park Street and Prospect Ave. There's now a trail that goes from that bus stop to Knoll Sanctuary. So just part of our goal to make nature more accessible for more people, you can now take public transportation to explore Knoll. So we're very excited about that. You can go to the next slide. So here are some of our educational programs that we offer across the state, but at Knoll as well. So Knoll has an annual summer camp for kids, all ages. And you can also do hikes. We do some guided walks, as well as online programs, educational programs that you can sign up for. So for the walks and online programs, you do have to sign up for a guided walk. You have to sign up in advance online, and anyone can sign up. And you can find out more about those upcoming programs at Oak Knoll specifically if you go to massaudubon.org/Oak Knoll. So you can go to the next slide. So one of the great things about our sanctuary system is they are great places to implement our education programs. So we found time and time again that the best way to get kids especially to care about and learn about nature is to get them outside in it. So we do a lot of place-based learning programs, bringing students and kids out to our sanctuaries so that they can experience nature firsthand. And our educators work with teachers and school officials to incorporate that education into their programming. And they will work with schools to design a curriculum, design a lesson plan that fits into the teachers and the grades curriculum. So we have several different programs that we offer with different age levels in different schools. So you can go to the next slide. And we also offer the option for field trips to Oak Knoll with the schools that we do partner with, which is great opportunity. They do a lot of programs at Oak Knoll with, so we have a series of wetlands and a pond that are great for collecting water samples and benthic samples. So looking at all like the tiny little critters that live in the water and live in the sediment at the bottom of the lake, and collecting those and counting them and identifying them. So the kids have a lot of fun when they get to visit the sanctuary. You can go to the next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about our advocacy work too. I am part of the advocacy department, which is a statewide department that works across the state. So, but as I mentioned earlier, my work is focused in the southeast region, and I do a lot of local advocacy. So working with local towns and cities, local government, and local communities to plan and for both land protection and climate resilience, because the two, which I'll talk about in a little bit, are very intertwined. So that is the work that I do at the local level. But we also have advocacy at the statewide level as well as at the federal level. So we do a lot of reaching out to legislators and working with legislators to draft policy, to advocate for policy, and of course, all the policies that we advocate for are to protect wildlife, to protect land, and to advance programs that improve climate resilience. So support communities in adopting nature-based solutions and other types of projects that help them to increase their resilience to climate impacts. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But I wanted to share our website with you, massaudubon.org/advocacy, which has a lot of great resources if you're interested in getting involved and speaking up for land conservation. So Political Landscapes is our blog where we publish stories on there. We have a weekly e-newsletter called the Beacon Hill Weekly Roundup. You can sign up for that on that page, massaudubon.org/advocacy. You can sign up there, and every Monday it lands in your inbox. It'll keep you up to date on what the newest policy and legislation is happening at the State House, and other things going on that you want to be aware of and steps you can take to take action. And we also have an action center that helps you to reach out to your representatives, so that you can write letters to them about issues that you care about. So you can go to the next slide, please. I wanted to just share a quick example of a program that kind of intertwines a lot of our work. Oh, and so I didn't mention the education and the advocacy work are two parts of the work that we do at Mass Audubon, but we also have the land conservation, and we have a lot of science and conservation programs. So we're working actively to protect land and to steward it and manage it in a sustainable way to improve health and resilience of our natural areas. So the Junior Conservation Commissioner program here is a program that our educators at Knoll have done with several middle schools in Attleboro. And it has since grown. So it started in Attleboro in partnership with the Conservation Commission at the town of Attleboro, or the city of Attleboro, sorry. And it since has been spread to other towns as well. But it's a really cool partnership that kind of intertwines all of these different parts of what we do and brings it into the classroom. So we partner with a class, and over the course of the year, our educators will do multiple programs with the students, coming to their classroom, teaching them about local conservation issues, teaching them about what a local conservation commission is, and the conservation agent will actually come and meet with the kids and talk to them about the work. And then they'll do projects. Well, they'll learn about watershed and how to plan and how land development impacts water quality and other issues. And then it all culminates. And then at the end of the year, they'll do a trip to Knoll to do some testing and monitoring of the benthics in the water that I was talking about earlier. And then it culminates in this seminar at the end of the year where the students present on their work. So it's a really cool program. And you can go to the next slide, Evan, please. So that's a very brief overview of all the work that we do at Mass Audubon. Now I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk more specifically about the work that I do around land protection. And a lot of that is focused around the value of nature. So quantifying the benefits that we as people get from the natural areas around us and what the value of that is and how does that benefit us. And it turns out that nature is really important for our well-being and for the resilience of our communities. And a lot of my work is focused on working with communities to understand those benefits and then to take steps to protect the natural areas in their communities. So you can go to the next slide, Evan, please. And this is just a list of all of the important services that nature provides for us, whether it's a large forest that is a few miles away, or if it's a street tree in front of your house. Like, regardless of where you live, there are pockets of nature around you in your yard. And like I said, the street tree in front of your house. And each of those little pockets of nature play an important role in removing carbon dioxide and pollutants from the atmosphere to improve our air quality, making it a better place for us to live, helping to absorb rainfall and stormwater runoff, again, purifying the water and absorbing those floodwaters, protecting our infrastructure. We get food from nature. And then all the habitat that natural areas provide for wildlife. And then, of course, the associated benefits that we get in terms of tourism, recreation, and the property values of properties that have more nature are in general worth more money. So there's a lot of good reasons to show that nature provides a lot of value for us and why we should be protecting it. So you can go to the next slide, please. I'm going to share just a few quick examples of specific values we get from nature. Of things. Okay, so 7% of Massachusetts greenhouse gas emissions are actually offset by the forests in our state every year. And you can go to the next one. We'll kind of go through these ones pretty quickly. So wetlands are really important for protecting coastal communities from storms. They absorb wave energy, flood surges, and wetlands in the Northeast from Hurricane Sandy saved about $625 million in additional flooding damages. You can go to the next one. Waterways, I mentioned how natural areas help to remove pollutants from the air and from the water as well. So the act of filtering out runoff as it enters our waterways and as it enters the ground improves water quality. And for every dollar that we spend on source water protection, so protecting natural areas to perform these filtering services. It's estimated to save, on the other hand, about $27 in water treatment costs down the line. So it's much more valuable for us to protect these natures to keep our water clean versus cleaning the water later on. So next slide. Pollinators contribute 24 billion to the U.S. economy. So many of our crops rely on them for the food that we eat because of their pollinators. So they pollinate the crops that we survive on. And 45% of our agricultural goods in Massachusetts rely on a diversity of pollinators for pollination. So the next slide, please. And last but not least, urban forests too play an important role in Metro West Boston. So the urban forests, think of those street trees and small little pocket parks, they remove 7.5 million pounds of air pollutants from the air every year, so improving our health and our air quality. And this, they avoid 527 million gallons of stormwater runoff, so capturing that and putting it into the ground as opposed to it flooding neighborhoods and overwhelming sewer systems. And the urban forests in Boston store 962,000 tons of carbon, which is the equivalent of about $125 million. Next slide, please. So we have more facts where those came from. If you go to massaudubon.org/value of nature, we have a series of fact sheets, and each one focuses on a different habitat. So forests, coastal habitats, wetlands, grasslands, and urban green space. And you can find out more about each of those different habitats and the services and the values that they provide if you go there. So next slide. All of these values that I just talked about, we have a word for how we describe these services and the natural areas that provide these services. So we refer to it as green infrastructure. So green infrastructure are natural features that perform all of those critical natural processes that I talked about and improve our community well-being and our community resilience. And green infrastructure can be used to refer to natural areas like a forest or a wetland, but it can also refer to an engineered or a restored area or something like a rain garden like you see in the top left-hand corner. So even in our urban areas where we may not have all of that undeveloped forest land, you can install these engineered green infrastructure solutions to kind of provide some of those same values. And if you go to the next slide, here's a map of our green infrastructure network across the state. So Mass Audubon releases this report called Losing Ground about every 5 years or so that looks at development trends and land use trends across the state. And in this most recent edition, we focused on the value of nature in protecting us and making us more climate resilient. So we identified these resilient lands. And actually, this map was taken from some work that an organization called Manomet did in the Taunton River watershed in the southeast. They did this same mapping there, and we took that same methodology and upscaled it across the state. So you can find this map online if you go to massaudubon.org/losing ground. You can go to the next slide. This is from that same report. So we also look at development trends. So here is, again, massaudubon.org/losing ground. You can find this map of development rates across the state. And what we found is that a lot of the ways in which we develop are eating up a lot of land. So our traditional way of development is kind of this sprawling development where we have large lot sizes and large parking lots. Like think about when you go to like a shopping mall and there's all this paved pavement for parking lots, and that's how a lot of our development is, and it disrupts those processes that nature provides, as well as paving over our natural areas. You can go to the next slide, please. And you can find out more about losing ground. There's the link again. I'll say it again, massaudubon.org/losingground. And you can find the full report. And if you hit next, you can go to the statistics and maps section. And that will let you search for specific statistics to your town. And you can actually rank your town across the state. So you can go to the next slide, Evan. Yeah. And so the problem with this sprawling development is that, like I said, it leads to a lot of those impervious surfaces, and then that disrupts the water system, and it prevents rainfall from soaking back into the ground. So when rainfall can't soak back into the ground, it turns into runoff. So instead of going down into the ground, it flows across our sidewalks and our parking lots, and the water can accumulate and cause a lot of flooding damages. So not to mention the infrastructure costs of having to pay to then direct that water and pipe it and then treat it and release it somewhere else. So leveraging our natural areas to do that work for us is much more beneficial. And this is just an example of how runoff changes. On the left-hand side is a natural area. 50% of the water would go into the ground and only about 10% results in runoff. Whereas on the right-hand side, that's what an urban area would look like. And only about 15% of runoff would actually make it into the ground, and over 50% results in runoff. You can go to the next slide, please. So now where does climate change fit into this? And you can go through to pull them all up. Thank you. So climate change increases precipitation and temperature, as we know. And those cause a lot of issues for communities already in terms of the stormwater runoff, water quality impairments, and the flooding. And then increased temperature impacts natural areas and wildlife, but it also stresses out humans as well. And then you bring in sprawling development and all the imperviousness associated with that. And it kind of exacerbates these issues of climate change, because with increased precipitation and more pavement, there are fewer places for the precipitation to go to. So it causes even more water quality and flooding issues. And pavement also increases local temperatures, because concrete absorbs heat as opposed to reflecting it as a natural area would. And so if you ever go to a park and you go stand on like a basketball court or the blacktop, you can actually feel the difference of how hot it is standing on there versus if you're standing in the grass or under a tree or something. So when you have fewer trees and more pavement, those heat impacts become even more significant. You can go to the next slide. So this is kind of a dual threat where we have both climate change is impacting us and development is impacting us in our natural areas, but then they're also impacting each other, making the issue even worse. So what do we do about it? It's kind of a big issue, but the good news is that we have solutions. So we recognize that development's going to happen. It has to happen to support our growing population, and that's a great thing. But we know that it can be done in a more sustainable way than it has traditionally and conventionally been done. And the way that you do that is to protect the nature that we have and then change the way that we develop so we're being less disruptive to nature. And you can go to the next slide, please. And nature-based solutions are kind of the solution to this issue. So nature-based solutions are projects that protect, restore, and or manage an existing ecological system or mimic natural processes. So kind of that green infrastructure I was talking about, how you can build like a rain garden that kind of mimics the same services that a natural area would provide. So that's an example of a nature-based solution. And all of these solutions are in our toolbox to help improve our resilience to climate impacts, improve public health, clean our water, clean our air, and make us more resilient to natural hazards like storms and things. So nature-based solutions come in 3 steps. First, conserve the natural areas that are already in your community and providing those functions. And then 2 is, as you develop, you can integrate smarter more sustainable development practices and integrate nature into the way you develop. So avoid destroying nature as much as you can and try to keep it intact as much as you can. And then the last step would be to restore resilience in an already developed area by restoring lost habitats or installing those engineered green infrastructure solutions like a rain garden, for example. And I think that's my last slide, right, Evan? Yes, so here are some links. I don't know if you want to leave this on while we answer questions, but those are some links where you can find out more about Mass Audubon and our programs. If you want to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and some email addresses to get in touch. So my email is at the bottom. If you want to contact me, please feel free to. But if you want to find out, if you have general inquiries about any of our properties or getting out to our sanctuaries in the Southeast, if you can't find an answer online, then that southeast@massaudubon.org is a great email. And if you want to find out about upcoming volunteer opportunities, you can go to SEVols or email SEVols@massaudubon.org. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much for that great presentation. It was very informative. I think we all learned quite a bit. So yeah, if anyone does have questions and would like to ask them, feel free to put them in the comment section and I can read them out. But I do have some questions for you, so I'll kind of get the ball rolling. If anyone has some, I can read them out. So actually, I wanted to reference the nature-based solutions you were just talking about. Is that something that like an individual could potentially do at their own home, or is this kind of on a larger scale type thing of maybe like a new construction project or something like that?
Yeah, both, definitely. So like I said, nature-based solutions are kind of this vast toolbox, and there's a lot of different things you can do. So a lot of it has to do with the way developers develop land. But in terms of local property, you can do something at your house as easy as installing a rain barrel. A rain garden and a rain barrel kind of operate the same way. So a rain barrel you would hook up to like the gutters on your house, and all the rainfall on your roof would flow into the rain barrel, as opposed to going into the street and overwhelming the stormwater infrastructure and causing flooding issues. And then you can use that water to water your gardens, for example. And then even if you don't have gardens, if you don't use that water, even just storing that water and then releasing it at a time when it's not raining, even that can have an impact because it's less water all at once, if that makes sense. So you're not overwhelming the streets and the sewer system. And then something like installing a rain garden is really nice. It's a little more work. It's not as simple as just installing a garden. But Mass Audubon has a blog on our website that if you go to massaudubon.org/yourgreatoutdoors, that's our general blog page. But if you go down a few posts, we did a post recently on how to install rain gardens if you're interested.
Cool. Yeah, and I think kind of on a similar train of thought, if you could just kind of elaborate a little bit more on the importance of greening like urban areas or cities. I know I was actually just in Austin visiting my brother in Jamaica Plains, and I just noticed that there was so much green around. They had a lot of community gardens as well, and it just seems so creative to use a space that looks like just pavement or impervious surfaces, but you can get pretty creative and really change it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
For sure. Like any little piece of land can make a difference because it's all about the collective impact. And at the very least, even if you have, if you don't have a lot of trees in your neighborhood, but maybe there's like this little patch, like a corner or something where there's nothing there, maybe it's just a big paved area that's maybe more pavement than is needed. I've seen projects where communities will, take out the pavement and put in like a few trees and put in some benches. And even that can make a difference because then you have somewhere that you can go and sit and cool down under a tree. But then of course, the more little projects like this, the greater the collective impact. So all those trees are going to help to remove carbon dioxide. So to help mitigate the impacts of climate change. But also improve like local air quality and cool neighborhoods. So there's definitely a lot of potential there in urban areas.
Cool. And then I'm wondering if you could talk about if you've noticed any like shifts or changes with the pandemic and if, the view. I know that people have. I've had a sense that people have been recreating a little bit more outside, just with more time at home. And if you've seen any kind of change, I guess this is more on the advocacy side of stuff, of people kind of pushing and wanting these open green spaces.
For sure, absolutely. A lot of people have come to realize the importance of our natural areas during the pandemic, because when we were all stuck inside, it was like the only space to get out and to be able to do it safely. So our sanctuaries were overwhelmed, like over the past year, the amount of people that were visiting our sanctuaries, which is an incredible thing. But it also brought to light this awareness of kind of how limited those spaces are and how limited access can be, especially in people who live in more urban areas and might not have easy access, and people who don't have cars to go drive to that access. So I think that's been very eye-opening for a lot of people, both at the community level and up at the state level and the federal level. And a lot of like policy changes are now starting to account for that equitability in public health in terms of natural areas and trying to address that. So yeah, I think for sure the pandemic helped to kind of open everyone's eyes to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems to really have, I guess, exposed maybe a little bit more the inequitable access to land too. It really, and more than just inequitable access to land, the pandemic has shown a lot of inequitable stuff. But yeah, it's been, and I think it's important for all of us, especially in this work, to kind of focus on making land access a little more equitable. Yeah, so I'm wondering if you could talk about working with other organizations and kind of the importance and kind of the benefit that you see from working with. There's a lot of organizations within Mass that do this type of work, and do you have like some sort of collaboration? I know the Attleboro Land Trust, we obviously do stuff together, but maybe even on a larger scale with bigger organizations. Yeah,
we have so many partnerships that help to advance our work. That's the way to do this. Everybody needs to work together. So we rely a lot on our partners to get work done. And the Attleboro Land Trust is a great example in Attleboro, because we share an office space, and especially for an organization like Mass Audubon that operates across the state, it's difficult for us to have like those strong connections to each community that we work in. So having a local partner like the Attleboro Land Trust, who's based in that community and has stronger ties, well, not stronger ties, but just is more active there, if you know what I mean, and knows a lot more of what's going on, being able to partner with that and work together to move projects across the line. And there's another, a larger example is, so I work a lot in the Taunton watershed, which is in Southeast Massachusetts. And Mass Audubon participates in a network called the Resilient Taunton Watershed Network, which is just a network of different people, different nonprofits, regional government agencies, local government, who all are working throughout the Taunton watershed. And we get together once a month and just talk about the work that we're doing and share what we're working on, but also like our challenges and what we've learned. And it's a great way to like kind of work together and move towards the same goal of protecting natural areas and communities. So partnerships are definitely a big part of it.
Awesome. Great. Well, I think that's all the questions. I always ask one last question, which is just kind of what motivates you to do this work, and what kind of gets you excited to protect land and promote these open spaces.
Yeah, well, for me, I just love being outside in nature. I try to get out every weekend to go for a walk wherever I can, even if it's just like walking around the block or like to the park near my house. And I, especially during the pandemic, like when I was stuck working from home as everyone else was, I was kind of losing my mind being stuck in my apartment, and I just needed to get out. And just being outside for me, like, brings me so much joy. I'm in such a good mood when I'm outside, and I want more people to experience that, to like go outside and like be like, oh yeah, like this is nice. So I guess for me, this local land development work is so important because so much of how we live and how our communities grow and develop is reliant on like the local level and how towns plan and regulate that type of development. And so working with them to kind of plan proactively and think about how they can protect those areas and make the quality of life better in their community, like so that more people can have that opportunity to just go out and connect with nature, is really, it makes me feel really good about what I do. So that's exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great answer. I love getting people outside and showing them like the places that you're passionate about, and just, you know, seeing the big smiles on the people's faces. It's always great.
For sure.
Great. So before I wrap up, I just want to give you a chance to say anything else. I know you've covered a lot, so I'm sure you may have covered it all, but if you want to say anything else, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is don't be afraid to get involved in your community. A lot of people get very intimidated. They don't know how local government works, and they don't feel comfortable speaking up because they feel like they're not an expert. But you're an expert in your community. Like, you know where you live, you know what's important to you in your community. So I would encourage you to go to like local community meetings, local town meetings, and just share that. Like, even if you're not an expert in nature-based solutions, or you don't know what green infrastructure is, like, just tell your local officials, as well as your elected officials at the local, state, and federal level, just tell them that you love nature and you want them to protect it. Like, it doesn't have to be as hard as it is. And I would encourage people to go to our advocacy website, so massaudubon.org/advocacy, and look at the resources and tools we have on there. And don't be afraid to speak up for nature.
Awesome. That is a perfect thing to end with. That really sounds good. And I can put in, I'll put all those links into the comment section so people have those as well.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I spit out all the links. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's good to get it out there. So
yeah.
Well, great. So I'll just wrap up really quick. So there's just a couple things I wanted to mention. So I'm reminding everyone that the Hike Attleboro Day is officially announced for July 17th, and it will be based at the Richardson Nature Preserve. So definitely put that into your calendar, and we'd love to have everyone there. And that's obviously a partnership with City of Attleboro, Mass Audubon, and Attleboro Land Trust. So it'll be a great day. We also, all these events are recorded, so if you haven't seen any of the previous ones, definitely go check those out. And they're on the ALT Facebook and YouTube channels. And yeah, so thanks again so much for coming on and being a guest. It was really great. I certainly learned a lot. Mass Audubon is a very big organization, so it's nice to like talk to somebody who's very in tune with all the work and obviously is doing stuff there. So I definitely learned a lot. I appreciate it. But yeah, all right.
Thanks for having me, and thanks to everyone for joining and listening in.
Awesome. All right, take care, everyone.
Take care.